Mike, turn your games down.
Hi, we're to another movie episode of Games My Mom Found. I am Mike Albertin, and who is working with Sky Guy with me tonight?
I am everyone's favorite Joe Butler, and I may just be introduced to the series for this movie.
Oh,
This is Padawan Jody, Baka Wheel on Twitter, and this is probably my favorite cartoon of all time.
okay, that's impressive.
Nice.
This is William Nutt, a certified worm loathsome enjoyer, logging on.
Welcome to your first time on the show.
Yes, indeed.
We are here to talk about Star Wars: The Clone Wars animated film 2008, which, hey, it released in theaters and on DVD.
This is
it
true.
did.
Wow.
Somebody saw it.
I worked at a Target when this was out on DVD. I remember there being a big display for it and all sorts of stuff like that, and me being like, well, this looks stupid. So,
Did anyone buy it?
First time I watched it was a bootleg. I never purchased it.
I saw it on TV at some point. That's when I first introduced it, before the show came on, though.
yeah, because this comes out right before the show. Like, the show is also 2008, and this comes out in August 10th. And then I think it was on TV not too long after.
Yeah, I remember for a bit they were doing with the Clone Wars where they were showing it on Cartoon Network and on TNT. Like, once, I think they were starting that the first couple seasons. So I don't know if they did the TV release on one of those situations.
I am not sure. I know the show gets kind of like different after a while because it runs on different networks.
Mm-hmm.
1 through 5 is Cartoon Network, then Netflix for season 6, and Disney Plus for season 7. But yeah, the show came out October 3rd, 2008, and then the movie is August 15th, 2008. So yeah, they're really close together.
Wow. Pretty sure I saw it on Teletoon in Canada. But, yeah.
That's because you Canadians don't have... well, you have Disney Plus, right?
We do. Disney Plus I have, but that's where I watched it now.
Okay, you guys
Yeah.
don't have HBO Max. I know that.
No.
Because my other Canadian and Newfoundland friend was always talking about how you can't get they don't get stuff like that.
Some HBO stuff's on Disney Plus for us, but other isn't.
That's weird, just because
Really?
Yeah.
different companies.
Yeah, you can watch all the Spider-Man movies on Netflix in other countries, can't you?
You could. Now I get them on Amazon, but they used to be on... And now some of them are on Disney Plus here. The first two.
Oh, that's cool. I can't get any of them on anything. I own them all, though, at this point. So I don't own No Way Home yet.
Also, weirdly enough, the TV show is not advertised as the TV show because they listed it as the final season. So if you click on the final season, it has the first 6 seasons and then the final season.
Yeah, I noticed that too on Disney Plus. It's hella weird.
So actually, one weird thing, too, is this movie wasn't in the timeline order. I figured I'd just get it right there. But they just ignored this movie in the timeline. I had a hard time finding it on Disney
Yeah,
Plus.
no, it's under its own thing as the movie. It doesn't count it as part of the series.
Yes,
Which is-
this also takes
yeah.
place... Only 2 episodes in the entire series are before this movie.
Mm-hmm.
Because the series, 1 is from season 1 and 1 is from season 2. Because if you've ever watched Clone Wars, the show is really annoying and it jumps through time.
Yeah, it's very like anthology like that. There's stuff that jumps around. I know in the later seasons they kind of drop that a little bit.
In the 6 and 7, it's dropped completely. Those are just in order.
Yeah.
Right.
And even in 5, there's more arcs where it's a couple episodes at least in a row. Whereas in the first 4, it jumps around almost episode to episode.
Yeah, it's strange. I mean, when this movie came out, I didn't realize in 2008. I mean, I might have been aware that the show was coming, but didn't give a shit because I mean, I was 18. I would have been 18ish, 19, 20ish at the time. So yeah, I'd been 21 at the time. So I just didn't care.
Yep.
So it just wasn't
Fair.
for me. But looking back at this, I remember complaining when this movie came out because this wasn't my Star Wars. Except, for a lot of people, this is their first Star Wars movie. This is what, pulls them into the series because you have a lot of kids that would have watched this and then get interested in other things. And it leads to it. I mean, and this also leads to such a big chapter of Star Wars in general.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
generally, this does... I know going into the series, the series is... A lot of people, that they visualize Anakin as animated Anakin. Because, the series does so much backfill on basically the characterization of Anakin in the prequels.
Well,
Way better.
I was listening to your Revenge of the Sith episode you had. Or was it Attack of the Clones you did?
Attack of the Clones.
Attack of the Clones. And you were talking about how, there's big jumps there for them, right?
Oh, yeah. Because, and that, without this, I'm actually, before people hear Revenge of the Sith, which we haven't recorded yet, we're also going to be like, you'll hear this episode, plus you'll also will hear, I'm going to be watching the original Clone Wars show too, which I've never seen before. So I have a better idea, like, what was already out there at the time to separate the movies. Because, like, this movie and this show really shows you why Anakin becomes what he does, becomes Vader. Where from episode 2 to 3, you don't have that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was gonna say, this is also like where you really get to see like Anakin and Obi-Wan like actually interacting in the series. If you actually watch the prequels, they barely have any screen time like actually together.
No, the show doesn't. I think what this movie does well, because I went into this movie thinking, okay, I don't really care about it. I'll watch it. I remember not liking it. I was grabbed pretty quickly, and I'm not a child. I'm 34 years old, and this movie grabbed me, and I was like, I didn't expect that. Like, it's still it can still be entertaining even to an adult. I mean, it's definitely geared towards kids, obviously.
Yeah, they hit the kid energy really hard. Like, going into it, I have seen the Clone Wars series after, and yeah, I do quite like it. But coming back to this, and as like the beginning, you can definitely see like, ooh, it was a little rough starting.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, this is also a very contained piece, I feel, too. Like, you don't need to know a lot. I mean, if you know the prequel stuff, that's fine. But even if you didn't, you have enough to enjoy it. You know, there's a war going on. You have the guys in white versus the droids. The droids are the evil. Like, you have enough to start it without needing to know a lot.
I remember two things specifically about this movie when it came out, though, which is really funny. And it being the weird switch, because the Clone Wars, the original TV show specials that they had were, cartoon, and then they used the switch to 3D, which I think was a weird choice because it's 2008. And if I remember correctly, like there's like a weird age where 3D animation went from being really expensive to really cheap. I have no idea why, but it just
probably
did.
Programs or something became much more automated in a sense. So
well, no, because also in like animation, once you've built the model, essentially you can just pose it as you need it. You don't need to go frame by frame drawing each frame. Like the original like 2D one, I know it was Genndy Tartakovsky, the same guy who did the Powerpuff Girls.
Yep.
And Samurai Jack.
Yeah, Samurai Jack. Yeah. And yeah, he's like intense on old school 2D animation like that.
And the animation looks good, though, for this movie. Like, it still holds up in 2023. I mean...
So, my opinion, the fights are looking good, but some of those facial animations in the early, at least in this, and some of the early seasons of the show, too, in my opinion, yeah, they're looking a little rough, too.
Yeah, they look a little robotic when they talk to each other.
Yeah.
I mean, I took it as, well, the clones are just supposed to be robotic.
No, yeah, the clone's fine, but yeah, I also noticed it, like, watching it. I feel like this movie, you can very much tell it was shot for TV because there's like a lot of like big close-ups on the characters. Yeah. And like they aren't really emoting to be showing them off that close-up.
I mean, it also makes sense because I'm pretty sure this was on TV pretty quickly.
Right. Yeah. No, as far as I know, production-wise, essentially they just like stitched 3 episodes together and put it out as a movie.
I'm okay with that, though. I mean, it's a different time. You wouldn't see that now where you go to launch the show and they're going to make a movie first. I mean, you just would not see that.
Right, no,
it's Star Wars, so that's why. But
yeah, it gives the vibe of like an anime OVA, almost.
Yeah.
And that's fair. I mean, we also got to remember this is 4 years after, I think it's 4 years after Revenge of the Sith. Isn't Revenge of the Sith 2004?
I think it's like 04 or 05.
But like at the time... Yeah. Besides this, I mean, I think we weren't even supposed to get the sequel trilogy. I think Lucas already said, yeah, I'm done.
This is what he had said, not long before this. He's like, no, I'm not doing it now.
This was like the second Dark Age, pretty much.
Yeah. Is this the only movie we've ever had without an opening crawl?
Yeah, I think so.
For Star Wars.
I don't know if Solo does, or Rogue One does, I think.
Rogue One,
Solo does.
No. From what I remember, I don't think they do. Solo and Rogue One, it's been a while since I've seen it. I'm also a Solo defender. I enjoy Solo. That movie gets way too much shit.
Good movie.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. No, really exactly. It's adventure. But from what I remember, Solo, it just starts on him like cutting on the speeder, and I think Rogue One is just like a cold open to the planet, if I'm not mistaken.
I need to I'm actually going to be rewatching those later this year for the show, but I haven't in a while.
One of the other things I remember people absolutely hating about this too was the introduction of Ahsoka.
Yeah. So,
but Star Wars fans aren't always known for being the nicest of assholes. So
yeah, they definitely,
very true.
definitely hardcore Star Wars fans do not accept anything that is not the tone that they are expecting.
Yeah.
That's my vibe. But Ahsoka, I come around to her later in the show, but first this and like first 2 seasons, the Sky Guy stuff, I'm like,
Well, it's also how young she looks too in the beginning.
right.
Well, they make that joke a lot, like you're only a youngling. Like even they think she looks too young to be there.
Yeah, and that's why it changes after a bit. But like, I used to not like her, but like, when I was watching this movie, I was really thinking about the fact that like, she's there to introduce, all the new audience that they're going to grab into the shows. They put a brand new character who just put into what happens, even though I was like, well, I mean, the fact that she's here means she ain't in Revenge of the Sith, so something's got to happen.
Yeah, some's got to give.
Like anytime I watch like Rebels or anything, I'm like, well, we either know you're either dead or going to be gone because you can't be here.
Oh,
You can't be in the universe.
Rebels retcons so many things within itself. It's hilarious.
Rebels is great though.
Yeah.
No, Rebels is good. Yeah, definitely.
Well, I don't know if you guys ever did. When I was a kid, I had the Star Wars Kids magazine and Star Wars Missions. You guys ever remember that?
No, I don't even know what that is.
It's like a little role-playing game, books that you read and got roll dice to play your characters, and you pick the characters from it. And I thought Rhoda, like the baby Jabba, was a retcon because in that you have to save what I thought was Jabba's son, but I went back and looked. It was Jabba's nephew, Grubba the Hutt.
Ah, I see. Okay.
So this so reminded me at the beginning of going back and playing those Star Wars missions.
Oh, that's cool.
Nice.
I mean, this also plays on some of the prejudice with Anakin. Like, this is, this is the first introduction of Rex is in this movie, Ahsoka. Like, characters that become a big deal for the Clone Wars and for that, and for all the animated series in general.
No,
I'm still waiting for Rex to show up in Mandalorian at some point, just because.
Is he in? Well, so I know like they've retconned him into Return of the Jedi.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I don't know if there's been any like lore of him post that.
There isn't.
There is.
Is he going to be in the new Ahsoka show? Because I know they had an announcement of some people, but I don't know if
He'd
he is.
have to be. I mean, like,
He's a big part of that. Of
even
Ahsoka.
if not, well, I guess depending on what it's said, it would have to at least be a flashback because like him and Ahsoka, yeah, that it's their relationship is basically a key to the last season of Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And you see a lot of it in this movie, too. Like, you have a small scene where they're walking together, and she's like, well, I technically outrank you, don't I? He's like, yes, but experience outranks everything.
That scene was cute. That scene was cute.
I mean, they are. Like, that's the thing. Like, I was surprised in the movie. I was laughing. I was enjoying myself. I was like, this is actually quite amusing, but it also, I mean, Clone Wars in general fit that, how bad war is. And, I mean, I think this movie, in a small way, kind of shows you how stupid the Jedi are sometimes. Like, you have it, like instead of like they're supposed to send reinforcements, so they're going to go pick up reinforcements. They say, no, we don't got time for that. Just fly there, bring Ahsoka, drop her off, and leave, and then come back and get your resources. Like, you have an army on the ground fighting. Yet it's more important to them to send a message than it is to wait, like, the couple hours it probably would take to load up troopers.
Well, yeah, no, because in the lore, like the Jedi are not a military organization. They're essentially making it up as they go. So yeah, they're a bunch of dumbasses. Like they basically failed to the top.
and I thought that this movie did a good job of really showing that. Like also giving Anakin a Padawan, which I thought was funny because she keeps calling him master. I'm like, yeah, he's not a master, but that's neither here nor there. But like, I think it also helps that character so much. But it's like just like in this movie, it makes everything more interesting to have him working with a Padawan and not with Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan is very much on his own in this movie.
It's much easier to connect to the Anakin we see here than the one we see in the movies. To actually see him as a good person, whereas it was hard to see that jump, definitely. Right? It's just so much easier to see it because he has that relationship and you can see all his nuances. You see his failures and where he's starting to fail.
No, like,
I mean, especially in the show, there's a scene where you completely see where he goes to the dark side.
Yeah.
So like, I like that. I always been a great appreciator of that to make that movie make more sense. But like, just even in this movie, like I felt like, you have all the droids, you have more super battle droids, which again makes perfect sense because regular droids are completely useless, but super battle droids, for anyone that played Republic Commando can vouch for this. Those fucking super battle droids are an asshole to fight.
Oh yeah, no, they are a fucking pain.
So I mean, I didn't appreciate it until I played that game, and I'm like, okay, yeah, if I was a clone soldier, these would fucking suck to see. Like a regular battle droid, who cares? But you see one of those things, you're like, oh no.
The movie also solidifies, because watching 3, you're introduced to the opening, and you have the scene where Anakin's like, oh, can I be a Jedi, like a Jedi Knight now, right? Or Jedi Master?
Jedi Master.
The Jedi Master, and they're like, no, you're still fine, Anakin. We don't think you're ready yet. And back when you're a kid, you're like, oh, that's bullshit. But when you watch this movie, you're like, oh no, he's never ready. He's still like a complete little shit throughout like his entire time during the Clone Wars.
It reminds me of the thing Yoda said to Obi-Wan. He's like, he's definitely ready to have a Padawan, but is he ready to let her go?
Well, yeah. Ugh. I mean, he's not.
No, not at all.
Yeah. Anakin's whole thing is attachment. It's like if you ever see the Kingsman movies, they're doing the scene where they have to train the puppy and then they got to kill the puppy at the end. Is the same kind of vibes as what Yoda's doing to there, essentially.
It raises the question to me, does that mean that he thinks Ahsoka's going to die now in this war? Is he sending her out there to die? Just to teach him a lesson?
Or just the fact that she would eventually leave because you only train your Padawan, and then in the normal situation, they would move on and you wouldn't be working with them anymore, except for like Obi-Wan and Anakin. They stay together in the movies because the movie said so. But I think we just see that more. Because I think like in the Clone Wars, I mean, they're together, but they're also doing their own thing a lot. So I think that's the idea.
Sure.
It's like you'd see them around on campus, but that's about it.
I also thought like with the fact like this whole like this movie kind of really broke it up into 3 sections, but like on the first, like the Crystal Planet, you have where the shield comes into play, where all of a sudden now their cannons no longer work, and they have to, and like them working together. I mean, their plan is stupid. They go under a box, Metal Gear Solid style, and just hide and wait, let them pass over.
Well, they did prove that beats AI. Did you see that news article?
Oh yeah,
so it can beat battle droids.
There you go. Snake was on to something.
But it's just like
not doubt Solid Snake.
You think something would crush it just because it's there.
Don't know why everybody avoided stepping on that box. Yeah.
Well, because they would have fell. I mean, those robots aren't very good.
True. But the tank.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the tanks hover, but yeah, I mean, they do avoid it, but you think like the tank would just run over, they wouldn't care. Like, you think they would just go off to the side and hide so they're out of the way and inconspicuous as rubble and then just go. But they're not. They're literally in the center of the path.
Yep.
So it was kind of weird. I mean, again, it's a cartoon. It's meant to be funny, but it was kind of like, okay.
Well, this movie has a lot of those moments, but that's Star Wars in general. Like, I always feel like Star Wars has these weird reasonings as why they do things, but it's because it's a story.
Yeah, but they did it because the plot needs it. It's fine. Don't think. Too hard.
Yeah.
I mean, it is cute. Like, it's cute how it
them standing up
with them. How Ahsoka has the idea, and Anakin gets upset. He's like, "Oh, I make the decisions," and then he's like, "Oh, we'll go with that. Yeah, it's a good idea." Because there's so much alike.
Their bickering is like really hardcore. They're like about to freaking throttle each other. It's wild.
I liked it though in this. I like the way they talk in this movie and communicate to each other. I thought it was good, and she's very much like him in the sense of she doesn't listen.
I have a weird question.
Sure.
So we're all pretty familiar with the Star Wars like story, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Does the Emperor pretty much work both sides?
Oh God, yes.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
So then does he sabotage himself on purpose for shits and giggles, or like
it's all part of? There's a meme that goes around that's the perfect example of it. There's that Pixar chess guy, and he's playing chess with himself. Except the meme is Palpatine. It's essentially what he's doing is he's manipulating everything so the Republic will win in the end, but they will win when while he has full power. Okay. He never expects the Separatists to win, but he has to give them some. He's making like in this movie you see it too, where Dooku's working with him, working right with Palpatine, but Palpatine's completely playing Dooku because he never has the Separatists are going to win. They're just a pawn to keep the Republic on edge, to keep the war going long enough for him to keep getting more power.
You gotta make the show look good.
Because Palpatine is essentially Vince McMahon. He's looking at this long term.
I mean,
you got to make him really strong.
I think even in this movie they do a good. They show you right away, like, hey, Palpatine and it's the same guy. Like, this is the bad guy. Like, they do a good job of showing you that right off the bat, no question, no hiding it. Just here you go.
One of my favorite things he says in this, actually, when he's talking to Padme, when she comes wondering what's going on, And he says the Jedi's secret attempts to make a treaty with the Hutts. Like just that quick, because he's the one convinced the Jedi to do it. But even that one line, he's like, no, he's in full control of everything that happens.
He's playing every side.
Yeah.
Or you could read it the other way as he's just the master of just rolling with it.
That too.
I mean, everything is planned. Like even in this movie, everything they did when they rescued the Hutt, everything was to his plan just about.
Well, that can also go both ways because there's a scene where Padme, I think she gets caught or something.
Yeah,
she gets caught. She gets caught, and she says something to Dooku where it's like, "Oh, the Republic will get me out of her," and he gives her like a look, like, "Oh yeah, I'm sure they will," because I guess he knows as well too.
He knows.
Yeah.
He doesn't realize that Palpatine is actually playing him, but he knows Palpatine is Darth Sidious. He just doesn't realize that Darth Sidious is really rooting for the Republic, just in his own way. You know, he's orchestrating it the whole time. And I mean, this movie doesn't show that, obviously, because it's just a 2-hour, 3-episode of the show, essentially, movie. But I mean, it starts it off. It starts to show you enough to seeds where you were a kid in 2008 and you just saw this movie. You know, you have enough to understand these are the bad guys and get entertained and buy toys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. This is where you can see, they were going hardcore in on the toys. We're just going to make the show look like the toy.
I mean, I don't remember the toys at the time. I mean, I did work in Target, but I wasn't paying attention. I do know there's a game for this movie, too, which I've never played, but I own multiple copies of.
Game for this movie? I played a Clone Wars game.
It's called Star Wars, The Clone Wars. Or, no, it's Republic Heroes. Star Wars, The Clone Wars, Republic Heroes.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's came out for this movie or if it's more for the show, but it's either this movie and the first season. It's very early, but I've never played it.
Yeah, and then there was also the Lego one. They did the Lego Star Wars 3 was just Clone Wars also.
Never played that either, but I own multiple copies also. One day. I keep telling myself one day.
I played one Star Wars Clone Wars games, but it was all in vehicles. You were driving around shooting.
Okay, that was probably Attack of the Clones, maybe.
That one like on Xbox?
It was on Xbox, yeah.
Yeah, that was Attack of the Clones.
Yeah. That was before this, though.
Yeah. That's 2002, 2003 era.
Yeah.
Yeah, there were a couple of like adaptations, quote unquote, of like what the Clone Wars were that kind of contradict each other. Because there's that game, then there's the 2D Clone Wars, which is not in continuity with this as far as I know.
No, it was the canon until Disney and all that stuff happens when he sells it. Because this isn't even part of the merger.
Yeah, no, this started pre-merger.
Yeah, this is he decided that he was going to do his own. I'm pretty sure he approved Tavosky's Clone Wars and then said fuck it and did this.
Right.
And then that gets retconned, even though like things from that, like this movie has Asajj Ventress, which is I think in that show. Even I've never seen it yet.
She
but
came from that.
Yeah, she's in that. She's actually like research-wise, she's actually based on like a original design for concepts for episode 1. She was originally like concept-wise going to be what Maul was essentially. I think it's her and Mother Talzin also is that where they were like concepting out because in the prequels they wanted a female Sith. It was either for 1 or for Attack of the Clones. But yeah, she comes from that concept.
I like her better than Dooku. I would have rather had her in the second movie than Dooku. I don't like Dooku. I mean, he's okay in this movie, and he's okay like where he goes in the show. But I do not like him.
I like Dooku conceptually, and I can never dislike Christopher Lee.
No, the actor is great. It's just
the most interesting man in history.
I just don't care for Dooku in general. Like, he works in this movie too, where it shows you that he's trying to be a puppet master too, even though he's a puppet, doesn't realize it. Like, when it comes to everything that they're doing. I mean, it also shows you like you have Obi-Wan fighting this random general that's part of the Separatist army. Like, you get to see a little bit of that because again, they're all being tricked too.
Yeah.
And I think that's good. And again, I mean, this movie did have really good droid humor.
Oh yeah, no, the droids are hilarious in this. I'll give it that.
I had the worst case of whiplash because I started watching this movie and I got like 30 minutes in, and Dooku shows up and I'm like, didn't Dooku die in the second movie? And then I had to like pause the movie and Google it. I'm like, oh, that's right. That's where the "do it" meme comes from because it's
do it.
Anakin has him at the the dual lightsabers and is fixing to cut his head off, and Palpatine goes, "Do it," and I'm like, okay, yeah, it's the third movie. Yeah, okay,
yeah.
Got him in the lightsaber scissoring position.
I mean, again, you need like that's why I'm so happy that they made this movie and then they made the show because it really helps fill that gap.
Yeah.
No, for real. If you go just by Anakin in the movies, like if you were to just focus on that, you ask yourself, like, what does anybody actually see in this guy?
Nothing.
Exactly. He's insufferable.
He goes from a fluky little kid hero to a whiny adolescent to just evil out of nowhere.
Yeah.
There's no in between for him unless you watch this show.
Yeah, which didn't exist.
Problematic himbo.
Yeah. I also like one thing that kind of goes along with Jedi, like we were saying, like, you know, the fact that like when they do this mission, they only send Anakin, a small team, and Ahsoka to go rescue the Hutt, because the whole like plot of this movie is that Jabba's son, which is never mentioned again, is captured by droid.
I have him in my notes at the end of Punky gets exiled to the Wikipedia mines because he's never referenced again.
Do they even say?
I mean, it's fine. It works. I mean, I'm surprised he wasn't referenced in some other thing, like in the show at some point or somewhere.
He's in one episode.
In, like, one episode, yeah, exactly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and that's where you learn his name is Rhoda because he works as a MacGuffin. He only went with the nickname.
He's completely fine as a MacGuffin in this to be the thing to kind of like, because it also makes sense that, you know, they're like the Hutts control, you know, Tatooine. I mean, probably also didn't know how long the show was going to make it, so they wanted to bring Anakin back to Tatooine again, just so you can see how angry he gets. And like, there's one scene with Ahsoka's like, "What happened on Tatooine?" He's like, "I don't want to talk about it."
Emotionally
I murdered
closed.
The men, the women, and the children too.
I committed a war crime. Obi-Wan also commits a war crime in this, by the way. Obi-Wan commits false surrender, which is against the Geneva Convention. This is an actual thing, yes.
That false surrender is good, though. Like, where he pulls the table up. He's like, I need refreshments.
Just drinking tea as his men die.
Yeah. Channeling
but again,
the Alec Guinness energy.
The men are expendable. Yep. Really, I mean, the clones really are expendable in this. That really is not really seen in this movie, but is a little bit seen in this movie, especially as the show progresses. Clones are completely expendable to them because they're just clones.
Which is wild if you like are in on the lore on the actual numbers of it, like the numbers of the armies versus each other. So I was listening to another podcast that like talks about this. They get into this point where the clones are outnumbered 100-1 by the droids. So it was, I think they get 6 million altogether clones off Kamino. So there's like 500 million droids. It's like, you can't be just marching your dudes out there like that. You got to conserve your resources.
I think it's just that stupidity, too.
Right.
That really goes through. And the fact that Palpatine is manipulating everything.
Yeah, the droids are essentially just Zerg rushing.
You say that the robots out, are winning by like outnumbered like 100-1. But like if I had to fight, it's the same equivalent if I had to fight like 100 toddlers. Sure, I'm a grown man, but those toddlers aren't very smart. It's the same thing with this. I don't understand how any of these robots get anything fucking done. Like they tip over with a small breeze.
Have you watched Clone Wars?
The movie or the series?
The series.
No, I haven't actually seen all of it.
They have other droids, and that's the battle droids are just the garbage. It's the other stuff that actually gets the job done.
Yeah, they get like your tactical droids and stuff like that.
You get like freaking assassin droids too later on in the show.
Assassin droids are fucking cool.
They have powerful ass stuff. It's just that like this is like the cheap grunts that you get to produce for 10 gold or something like type of thing.
RTS logic, it's a Zerg rush basically. You're just like out attritioning the clones, so just keep throwing droids at it. Eventually they'll die.
But they also don't see clones as people, which I think this movie touches on very briefly. I mean, not with like any of the dialogue or anything, just because of the way things happen, like the way that they disregard them. I think it's starting to kind of show that. There's also a scene I think is kind of violent for a kid's show, where when Jabba had sent bounty hunters to go find his kid, which is how the clones figure out where he is. They follow the bounty hunters to a church. They're like, oh, the bounty hunters have returned. They just bring in a gurney with all the heads.
Jeez.
I'm like, this is kind of like, this is a kid's show. Like, I get his teenagers type stuff, but like, still, like, it's just a bunch of heads.
Yeah, no, there's some moments. You could probably get away with saying they're helmets, but yeah.
They're not. I mean,
only one of them is a droid head.
Oh, they are?
It's literally one of the guys, one of the like tan aliens with 3 eyes.
Yeah.
Oh,
that's a head. There's a Rodian head. Like that's no helmet.
One of them could either be a helmet or a droid. The first one is the insect-like one.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's a droid, but the other three are definitely.
Okay.
I mean, they're not even like. I mean, I could have seen if they would have tried to done like because you can. I have cartoons do that. They'll use helmets or other things to emulate what really happened. But like these are straight up heads.
Okay.
But I don't think they would have got away using a human head, which is probably why they chose 3 aliens.
Right.
Yeah, because we're xenophobic, I guess. It's okay to kill aliens.
Pretty much.
No, Star Wars is hella racist against aliens.
Oh god, yes.
Anakin is hella racist in this movie also.
I think Anakin's like racist in general. Maybe?
Yeah, kinda. Well, I mean, the Empire eventually does become essentially a human, like, supremacist thing within the lore.
It's so weird. Yeah. It's like when you base something off call them stormtroopers. It's so weird that they become racist. I wonder
what they were referencing.
Yeah.
And you know what? I want to go a little bit deeper into that as well. So we get the later plot point of this movie where Jabba the Hutt tells the Jedi come and they're like, oh, we'll go save your son. And then Count Dooku, does Jabba not know that Dooku's like maybe a Sith? Is that what part of this movie is?
So
no, he doesn't.
From what I remember, essentially nobody other than the Jedi believe like in the Sith. So they're like undercover, like black ops type stuff.
And even then, they don't believe in the Sith.
The Jedi barely do, and they're actually kind of trying to keep it like on the down low to the general public. I
was gonna say because like if a little Nazi walks in and is like, "Oh, don't believe that other guy that was just here," they're actually gonna kill your son, and they have like a 3-second video. I kind of be like, "Oh."
Yeah, no. As far as like general Star Wars population knows, Dooku is he's the leader of the Separatists, but they don't know like he's dark side and stuff like that.
Yeah, they just see the Separatists as wanting to, kind of like the idea of the Confederacy with us, with America, I think is the way to put it.
So they kind of are. It's kind of that, but it's also kind of like a workers' revolution type thing.
Okay.
Because from what I remember, the Separatists is basically run by like all the heads of business, like in the galaxy. Yeah,
head of banking clan. I mean, there's a brief scene in the beginning of this movie that shows a bunch of them, the head of the Techno Union, and they're kind of just together.
Dude has the best sound effects, the Techno Union guy. He's basically just a dubstep alien.
So, I mean, they do that. I mean, they introduce you to so much stuff in this movie where I feel like this movie can be very standalone if this is your first Star Wars thing.
Yeah, it explains most of it pretty good.
Yeah.
And Dooku was a senator at one point, wasn't he, after he left the Order?
No, I don't think he was a senator. He's a count. He becomes a count because he originally his family was of royalty. Then he gives that up, becomes a Jedi. Then when he gives up the Jedi Order, he goes back to being what he was.
Okay.
He takes over the title as a count and runs that planet or wherever he was, and then that leads to the Separatist stuff.
Yeah, he does like speaking arrangements and stuff like that.
And they don't realize that he's being manipulated by Darth Sidious because they don't believe in Darth Sidious at this point. Like, especially when they see Asajj Ventress, I'm assuming it's supposed to be like, okay, Dooku's the master, this is his apprentice type thing, and they're not even realizing that you're completely off.
Yeah.
Except in the movie Revenge of the Sith, that doesn't count because she was never created at the time. I mean, she's completely forgotten about and actually she doesn't exist, so it's a different thing. But yeah.
That gets explained for weird reasons, but it works in general. But anyways.
I mean, also, it's a war. I mean, this war goes on for 2 or 3 years? The Clone Wars go on?
Yeah, I think it's like 3 years altogether.
Which does make sense that they, I mean, there's enough time that would have passed that, and the movie is so brief for, Revenge of the Sith, like, it makes sense they never mention it. They have other stuff to worry about.
Plus, like, aren't all records wiped at the end of, like, Revenge of the Sith?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah. Palpatine is big on, he, like, wipes all the Jedi records, and it's a lot of, like,
wipes out all the
propaganda stuff, all that.
Yeah, he rewrites history because that's what, I mean, to be fair, that's what dictators do in real life, too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's
they rewrite their own history.
Yeah,
So, I mean, that's not far off from what does happen in real life when you have dictators. But there's in the second part of this movie where they go to, then you have Obi-Wan goes to Jabba the Hutt to negotiate a treaty, which I thought was stupid. They should have sent someone else, anybody else, and then send Obi-Wan. And then there's an Anakin and Ahsoka and their small group to go and free the Hutt from this church. And I really like the scene of them climbing up the mountain where they're just scaling this thing straight up and you just have them fighting droids. I think that's a really good scene.
The music in that section also slaps. Yeah. It's like they got some electric guitars in there, which is like really weird for Star Wars, but it was really good. It felt like almost like Quake music or something like that.
Even when they enter into the monastery, they switch the music again. And it's almost like a country type.
Yeah. Like it's got like some sitar. I think it's like sitar. Yeah.
Like it's so not Star
cool
Wars music, but it's really good.
No, it's surprisingly. I mean, just what's happening too. The visuals of it, of them climbing up this hill, and again, like they lose so many clone troopers while they're climbing up this hill because again, they're not they're not important.
It's fine.
I'll just pop a few more out. It's no biggie.
I think that's why he chose clones, because it was the idea that, you go with something that can be considered expendable.
Yeah.
But I also think it might have just been a funny word to him, or not, a funny word, but it's like, I'll just say Clone Wars. That sounds cool in science fiction in the 70s. And he's like, oh shit, I got to do something with this someday.
So I wrote myself into a corner.
I do think Jabba's pretty gullible at that point, though, because here they're going in, and all that Anakin says is, I hate Hutts.
Oh, yeah, no, Jabba's a dumbass in this movie.
They got a recording of him saying, I hate Hutts, so he's like, oh, they must be against me.
They must be trying to kill me.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it also is, I feel like, my opinion on this part, too, is why Jabba sides with Dooku, is because he probably had run-in with the Republic before, with law, with something, I'm assuming. So he has a different distaste for them, where Dooku is like the rebels and the separatists. So they're like, oh, okay, they're telling us the truth.
I could see it more like he just doesn't like authority because he's doing his crime stuff. But as far as I remember, like the Republic doesn't really care about the Outer Rim. That's kind of actually part of the Separatist thing. Like it's a lot of the Outer Rim planets also, because they're like saying, hey, y'all in the Center Rim are running everything, but we're out here getting the shit end of the stick. So, yeah.
Literally.
Yeah, pretty much. Because, on Tatooine, they still have slaves, like they say it in episode 1. Like, I thought slavery was outlawed. It's like, no, nobody cares out here. We don't take your money out here.
I mean, I think, again, they don't really care about the Outer Rim in this movie either. They're just trying to, move troops.
Right.
They're just trying to
it's a
destroy the
logistics
Separatists.
thing. Yeah, exactly.
And, like, everything with the monastery, I feel like it for a little bit when they first go in there, it definitely has the horror movie vibe when they have just the flashlights and they're just, roaming around trying to find what's going on. I was waiting for something to jump out and just start grabbing them, which didn't happen. Instead, they walk in the, dungeon and they're like, oh, droids.
The lighting in the scene where they're doing the landing, like coming off the cruiser, that was also a really, really good shot. I will give it that.
I find it a little ironic that they would hide the baby Hutt in a same kind of monastery that Jabba's palace is.
Oh, because the door?
Well, it's a Bomar monk temple. They say it, like a Bomar monk monastery. Which is what Jabba has, is an old Bomar monk monastery.
I never knew that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of noticed it too, because like in the background you see like one of the big platforms that Jabba like lays on. So
that's cool. Okay, that just made this movie cooler to me.
That is weird.
Okay.
It's like poetry, it rhymes.
I also I find it funny when they're like, oh, people have droids. They couldn't be part of Dooku. Like it's fuck anyone that has droids you think should be a separatist. Like you think they're just giving away these droids. Like here you go, have an army of droids. So, but again, I think it goes along with how stupid the Jedi truly are.
Yeah. They just don't see anything.
Yeah.
Only what's exactly in front of them.
Yeah, they're so far up their ass. They can't see it. But also they have to project like we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
Well, I did like it with the servant droid that you've seen the monastery. It's like, oh, you guys saved me. Then later on, when Ahsoka sees the same droid, loading up with the separatists, and she's like, so you were a traitor, and then she just murders it. It's funny. There's a lot of good humor. I was surprised how much humor there was with Ahsoka and the bots, and just I was like, okay, this is funny. I was not expecting that.
Yeah, that bit was funny. Ahsoka coming in though first, where she's like, would a servant girl have this with the lightsaber? For me, that was laying it on a bit thick. Like, I'm a cool girl. That line was a bit much.
I also thought that they were going to touch on with the Hutt being sick. I mean, they have them heal him essentially, but they never. Like, I was thinking that they poisoned him on purpose, so that way, if they did rescue him, he'd die anyway.
Right, yeah. They just burped the Hutt.
Well, they give him medicine, but yeah.
The doctor droid is hilarious, by the way.
The hologram. That's
yes, where you just tell
just like see a real doctor.
Yeah.
All I could think of
see a real doctor
was Star Trek Voyager when I saw that. That's all that went through my head, because I'm also on a Star Trek kick right now. I'm watching Next Gen, and I'm going to try to go through the whole series. We'll see how that goes. Past that, but I was like, it was, when he's like, "Oh, call a real doctor." I'm like, what if we just make your hologram stay? You'd be a real doctor.
So I think it has to do with the fact that it's supposed to be like a baby, and like if you like keep babies up for long times and like not meet their needs, they end up getting sick. I could probably
they also end up dying too.
Yeah.
You also will be going crazy too, because they won't stop screaming. So that's another side effect. If you don't take care of babies, they scream. I speak from experience. My baby screamed a lot when he was little. They all do.
The baby hut is his hella cute.
I like how they nickname him Stinky, though.
They really hit it hard when they first pick him up, though. It's like 5 stinky jokes back to back to back.
And I do like how racist though Anakin is. I mean, like you said.
Anakin is about to like throw out a hut slur or something in this movie.
I mean, again, it makes sense because he was originally enslaved by the Hutts, and then he was sold from the Hutt to Watto.
Right, no, logically it makes sense. I just find it hilarious.
I do too. Like, it's just like, because again, I mean, I think like, well, I mean, they knew, of course, at this point. They're like, we want to make that arc of showing how Anakin becomes Vader, and we're going to start it here. We're going to plant little seeds here. You also have a small scene where one of the troopers that Obi-Wan is talking to is Cody, which is a reference to Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah,
I don't remember, but I'm assuming Cody plays a part throughout the series too, right?
Cody, he's not in it as much as Rex, but he definitely has a few episodes where he's like center.
He mostly works with Obi-Wan, don't he?
Yeah,
because he's in Revenge of the Sith when they turn on Obi-Wan. Yeah,
no, he's part of Obi-Wan's battalion. The show itself mostly follows Anakin's the 501st.
Yeah,
that's why you see a lot more Rex.
Yeah,
I like Rex.
I also like.
I mean, I forget, like when this came out, I was like, I don't give a shit about any of these characters, and then. I remember there being like figures and posters and stuff when I worked there. I'm like, I don't care about any of this. And then now I'm like, okay, yeah, I care.
I laugh at one thing, because when Rex escapes, he like beats up a bunch of droids. A couple of the troopers do, right? Because they don't have guns. They smack their heads off and then grab their gun. Yeah. But right at the beginning in the opening when they're running troops, one of the troopers loses his gun and he runs out and smacks a droid and screams because it hurts his hand.
That happens like 3 times in this movie.
Yeah.
Well, some of the clones are really stupid, too.
They are. They really are.
So, I mean, yeah, that's all One thing I thought was, like, it was, again, to me, it was a funny thing. Like, you think Jabba would be like, okay, because Anakin Skywalker does eventually come and threaten Jabba. And you think he'd, like, when Luke shows up, 30 years later, Skywalker, huh? Or 20 years later.
No, what actually came to mind for me with Jabba is, like, so Jabba runs Tatooine. He's interacted with Obi-Wan. He's never, because you see, like, I don't know if y'all seen the Boba Fett series, Disney Plus. Yeah. So the crime lord of Tatooine, like he goes around to businesses and stuff like that. So I found it funny that Obi-Wan interacts with him here, but then never after. I don't know if that's like CinemaSins level nitpick. No, it's not like it breaks it for me, but I just found it like interesting.
I take it more as what I always use to kind of reference that why nobody knows who he is because everyone believes he's dead because they were told by the propaganda machine that they're all dead.
Right.
So that's kind of that thing where you don't expect them to be there, so you don't even see them there. And my guess is that he just, vanished if he came around.
Okay. Yeah, it makes sense.
Plus, everyone thinks he's dead. I mean, all the Jedi are dead.
Yeah.
So that's what they think. I mean, except the more movies and shows that come out, we realize, no, there's a lot more Jedi.
Exactly. The Return of the Jedi. I don't think they ever really went away. Return of the Jedi. It's like there's quite a few out there now.
I mean, a lot of them are all put away throughout the shows, though. Yeah,
they're all staying down on the DL.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense why you don't know most of them, but.
So, guys, what do you think of Jabba's uncle?
Oh, 0.
I'm gonna go ahead and make this joke right now before we go ahead and get for it, confirm it. Mike knows I am a homosexual man. That is a homosexual the Hutt. No one can convince me that Hutt family member is not a gay man.
Oh yeah, no, he is
100%.
Is straight up a Truman Capote impression.
So he actually is. Apparently, I did some research on this because I was curious about him. Because George Lucas asked for him to sound like that because he wasn't supposed to talk at all at first. He was supposed to speak Huttese and have a translator. And they didn't think kids would understand what the translator they spoke into was.
But they have Jabba.
I know. So George Lucas said, have him be Truman Capote. And I was looking into it too because it's I find it hilarious because Hutts at this time were hermaphrodites. There was no sexes back in Legends.
Right.
When Disney came out, they changed it. Now there's male and female.
I believe that.
So now he can be.
Okay.
Whereas back then they said it was questionable his sexuality because he's hermaphrodite like all of them anyway.
Does that mean in this movie, Jabba the Hutt doesn't really have a partner? He just kind of gives birth to his own kid?
Basically, it's possible.
Within lore at the time, yes, but now
there's a mother out there somewhere.
Yeah, Jabba has known a female Hutt carnally.
I don't even want to think about how that would work.
I don't either.
Yeah, no, you're 100%. I mean, I thought the same thing. I remember like it being weird to me when I was younger and I watched this, but now I'm like, okay, yep, that's 100%. Like that's what they're going for. I can't tell if it's like derogatory or is it just like it feels like it's there, kind of like a little.
It's borderline because
yeah. There's been a lot of discussion on it. I went looking and there's a lot of discussion of some people defending it and some people saying it's leaned too far into the stereotype.
Plus, 2008 was a different time and not in a good way. When it comes to stuff like that, we were much more used. We're much better about things now than we were then. So,
well, I mean, Disney and just movies in general have just a thing about gay coding villains. So, like Scar in Lion King, all that. It's making gay guy equals bad guy, or more effeminate man is bad guy. It's just
Scar
like a thing.
Gay? Scar was gay?
That's what I'm wondering.
Not that he is gay, but he's in writing.
He had a whole harem of female lions, like
right, but he's
the only male.
But I guess you could say he is more effeminate though than like you look at him compared to his brother, the big masculine man.
Okay.
Yeah, I get that.
See that now.
Is that like Ursula being this essentially based on a drag queen, stuff like that?
Oh
so, yeah. It's
before,
like
but you're
thing.
Right.
No, Ursula is straight up based on Divine.
There's a guy who's been watching RuPaul Drag Race lately because my wife thought we have it on Paramount. Yes, that I can 100% see it now.
Yeah. Well, another big one was Ratigan and Great Mouse Detective.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like a thing in script writing. It's gay coding villains is kind of a stereotype thing.
What is it?
Yeah, there's tons. Freaking.
Is it the
movies?
The villain in Pocahontas is that guy that wears like the all gold and stuff. Is now also kind of I think.
That one.
I just thought it was a rich guy.
No, he wears like a bunch of like feathers and stuff like towards the end of the movie or something. Doesn't he?
It's never like
it's been a while.
It's never explicit like he is the gay guy, but it's coding like that.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, like Assad, we can kind of talk about like Assad Ventress. I mean, she's a bald female character.
Bald Betty, hell yeah.
I mean, I could have been a little bit what they were going for too, or something.
No, her and Obi-Wan have totally boned. The energy is off the charts.
She's introducing, like I said earlier, Savosky, the 2003 show, and they brought her back for this.
She was awesome in that. The whole thing where she got to be his Dooku's apprentice. That episode was awesome.
It's like she's doing like a whole Coliseum thing.
Yeah.
Freaking rules. That show was so good.
And just the monastery stuff is all good, and like how you have Anakin pretty much have to like give up on the troops at one point because the mission comes first and he doesn't want to. I think that's all good again, showing that I mean, and at this point there's very few left with Rex. Like Rex and just a couple clone troopers are left because they all just been massacred.
Does that have to go with his weird attachment thing?
Probably, yeah.
Probably, but he's one of the few Jedi that actually treat clones as if they're people because of it.
Because they don't, which is. Again, I think it makes sense in the sense of when you have a war and you have people that you're sending to your death like this and you're not trained for war because you're a Jedi and you're a peacekeeper, it makes and you have no attachment in general, it makes sense that you just see these as pawns. I mean, literal pawn.
Yeah.
And expendable. And then again, which also leads to everything that comes on later and why they're, why they make some of the decisions they make. I do like in this movie, it shows you how bad, just like how vicious destroyer droids are, but also shows you a funny way to beat them, like when they run away and let it roll towards them at one point.
Yeah, that tactic is pretty funny. The other one, I know another one that happens like later on is you just like roll a bomb under their shield and you're good.
Which again makes sense because the idea that it goes too slow, it can't deflect it. Not designed.
Yeah, it's like Dune shields.
So I'm okay with that. And you get to see R2-D2 do his little jet thing again that he does in Attack of the Clones.
What happened to those jets?
They weren't invented.
I know, but still.
They retcon how good they work every other movie.
R2 got tired of carrying the rest of the party on his back. He said, "You know what? I'm putting in low effort from now on."
Oh, I mean, God, there's so much effort R2 does throughout the series in this movie. Like, he is such a character.
R2 is the real MVP in this series.
Oh, and to go back on the hut that we were talking about, I completely forgot Padme's in this movie.
Yeah,
until I rewatched it.
Like, oh, Padme's here now.
Because it's like over an hour in before Padme even shows up.
That's why, like, this movie, I was trying to watch it like from the perspective of like, okay, I'm watching this in a theater. If you do not know these characters beforehand going in, you will be lost.
Yeah.
Because like Padme comes out of nowhere. It's like, who is this person? Obviously, I know because I'm a Star Wars nerd. But I can imagine like parents taking their kids to see this, or critics watching it like not being
I think
familiar.
With children, you would just move on.
No, as a kid mentality, yeah, you're fine. You just roll with it.
But
like
critics would complain. But I think it like in the way the movie flows, even though if you don't know who she is, you won't get some of the context of she's like, Anakin's in danger. Like, you have enough of, I'm a senator. Oh, okay, we might know the word senator because, you know, we heard it in our real life. You know, something of that nature, and her being, oh, she's in trouble, like, you know, stuff like that. I think there's enough to keep you interested.
I think you would get a role and you'd be interested, but, like, contextually, I feel like this is not a good, like, onboarding.
Not for her. It works for everyone else, I want to say, but for her, it's a little like, eh. I mean, I don't mind it, but I see exactly where you're coming from.
I don't know how you'd fix it.
Not have her in this movie.
Yeah.
Either that or
she just felt unnecessary. It felt like, you know, because again, everything's just happening. You just have her, like, you could have had something else to do with that hut. You could have had, but I guess it's the idea that you wanted to put a woman in trouble.
Yeah, and if you have the 3-episode mentality of this movie, she was in the 3rd episode. She wasn't in the first 2.
In my opinion, though, like, if you look at it as 3 episodes, it works. Because, like, okay, now we're doing the Padme episode, and she's in the arc now. But if you're coming in as trying to watch this, like, as a movie, I feel like structurally it's a little tough. The pacing in this is also, like, break.
I didn't watch this in one sitting. I watched this over the course of, like, 2 days.
Oh, no, I watched it this morning. I like, watched it to brush up, to come in fresh. And, it is... Fight, talk. So,
to be fair, though, this did come out after Star Wars 3, and it's also still called The Clone Wars. And you think probably any reasonable parent whose kid is like, oh, I'm really into Star Wars, you would think they would at least probably either, if not ignore the fact that they go to the movie, at least watch the other ones. Because my weird concept is like, that's like today I went to go see Scream 6, and there's tons of references to the other movies. And one of my friends wanted to go, but they haven't watched the other ones. It's like, would you really enjoy yourself if you haven't seen the other movies?
Yeah, this is definitely something you need to be like fully bought in to enjoy.
I also feel like a kid in 2008 would have already absorbed certain stuff just for osmosis. Through toys, through what they'd see on commercials. Like, you would absorb some of it already.
Yeah, well, as a kid, I don't know. I never minded popping into TV series either in the middle. It was
now
episodes. But
if you told me that, I'd look at you like you just murdered my child. But back then, I'd be like, sure, let's just watch a random movie in the middle of it. Like I've been going back and watching some of the movies from the 80s, like Back to the Future, for example, which you'll hear on the show by the time you hear this. I had never seen that movie all the way through because I just would watch it randomly here and there.
That's cool.
Since I met my wife, she's made me watch movies from the beginning, and I've never realized how many movies I never saw the start of. Like, missed the first 15 minutes.
Or there's movies like you've seen the whole movie, but you've never seen it sequentially. You've seen like bits here, bits there.
Yeah, like I was watching Blade Runner for the show recently, and I realized I only saw little bits and parts of that movie. I just kept missing the beginning, missing the end. I must have been like, "Oh, Blade Runner! Oh, this is stupid," and turn it off and went on to something else.
For me, a big one like that was Saving Private Ryan, because that one was like on TNT all the time.
Yep.
And yeah, you could go in like half hour in or whatever, and you've missed part of it. Yeah.
Like the whole thing, like in the third act of this movie, when they do when they get to Tatooine, they're trying to bring back Stinky. Like, I feel like that's also good to kind of show you how Anakin gets suckered into things, because he listens to Dooku, he gets sucked into Dooku saying, "Oh, Ahsoka's here, and you know she's gonna be killed," and he just falls for it.
Yeah, no, Anakin totally tunnel visions. That's like his main problem as a character.
You know how I know this movie was made in 2008?
Well, go for it.
there is a whole 10-minute section of Ahsoka and Anakin in the desert, and not one "I hate sand, it's coarse and it gets everywhere" joke. Because I guarantee you, if this movie was made now, they would have said that like 3 times in the span.
I was expecting it.
Okay, it's not the exact line, but she does say something
just something similar
to R2. It's like, oh, it's just gritty sand. I'll clean out your servos later.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would have hammered the meme nowadays.
Yeah, they would have.
That was like, that was my main, like, I don't know if y'all have seen the Obi-Wan series.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was my main problem with that. They end the series on a meme.
And I don't remember the ending now.
I don't either.
It made no lasting impression.
Yeah.
It didn't either for my numbers either.
I have thoughts about the Obi-Wan series, let's put it that way.
He says hello there.
Yeah, it ends on the hello there. The last line cuts to black.
Okay.
Okay, now I remember that. Oh, but okay, before we go to the desert, because I forgot something I want to mention. To go back like with Padme's stuff, I want to talk a little about that. I think I like the stuff with Padme where she goes to the hut and like she holds her own for a bit. Like she tricks them into having them call reinforcements essentially to go rescue her too. She's like, "Don't touch that," and they do because they're stupid.
Yeah, no, she does play them pretty good. That one is pretty funny. Yeah. I did also like animation thing. I noticed you can tell they were like saving budget a little bit with her, particularly because very specifically she loses the cape when she's about to go into the action scene. Because it'll be easier to animate it without the cloth physics. You notice it on the Ventress saber fight too. She takes off like her flowy parts of the costume, so she's just in like the skin tight. They have the budget to do it for Dooku, but not anybody else.
That's funny. I didn't think about that, but that makes sense. And to go back with your desert stuff, like you really get to see Ahsoka how powerful she kind of is. She takes out 3 of those droids, like the fake Jedi fighter droids with like the wands. Like she beats them. No. And those are not easy.
Those dudes were like working Obi-Wan in Revenge of the Sith. Too.
And she takes out 3 of them.
And it's surprising, like you saw her fight Ventress. She actually held off Ventress for not long, but more than I thought she would with Ventress.
Yeah, they do a good job of showing you that she's actually a pretty powerful character. I can't wait to see what they do because there's a Ahsoka show coming out at some point. I think this in 2023. We're getting it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's supposed to be coming out this year. Yeah,
they haven't given a release date, but I'm excited to see more of her because I really want to see where it goes with her story.
I'm hoping they do it like in actual sets though, because like I don't know how much y'all are familiar with how they shoot the Mandalorian and Obi-Wan and all that.
Yeah, on that rotating camera thing.
Yeah, the big like LED screen room.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So the thing is, though, that messes with like your blocking for your action scenes and stuff like that. So that's why some of the action scenes in Obi-Wan feel kind of weak, in my opinion, because they barely have like room to actually move around. Like the foot chases in Obi-Wan and all that feel weird because of that. So I'm hoping they give them actual space, like on sets or location to do something. Because
I'm hoping. I think they're learning though from their mistakes. So
yeah, definitely.
Well, I was reading something.
There's been a lot of talk after Ant-Man not performing. So a lot of talk.
Because they talked about how Bo-Katan's not going to be in this series now. Katie Sackhoff apparently said she's not. And
in the Ahsoka one?
In the Ahsoka one. She apparently in an interview, Katie Sackhoff said, "I'm not in this."
Okay.
And they were saying it's part of the Mandoverse, which is actually the first time I ever heard this expression now.
Well, I mean, that's really the reboot. I mean, not reboot. Okay, reboot's the wrong word. It's really just the next section of Star Wars. Like, you have this section where it's all Clone Wars stuff at the time, and then, they tried to go on with Force Awakens, Last Jedi, and then after that didn't work out. Now they're like, okay, we're just going to do stuff here with Mando because this is working.
I mean, yeah, they got like 30 years worth of timeline to play around with. So yeah. That's where I'd want to be writing.
And I'm okay with that. I said I wouldn't mind more stuff after those movies, but I think it's going to be a while before we see Rey or any of them again. So
I'd like to see some more stuff there in the vein of like how Clone Wars handled it, just to try and build out that world more, because I feel that's one of the reasons those movies are weak.
Yeah, I want more.
Yeah, sure, but there is a lack of world building in those new ones. Yeah. Even and I'm a defender of the sequels. Like I enjoy the sequels, but
I do too. But I'd like more.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them in a while. I really like Force Awakens. I did not like Last Jedi, and I remember loving Rise of Skywalker, but I'm worried that will not be the case when I rewatch it. So
that's how I felt when I saw them, but I don't know.
I am flipped. I am a Last Jedi defender.
Same.
And for me, like Rise of Skywalker, there were parts of that movie that had my eyes like rolling out of my skull.
Well, the problem with that trilogy is the first movie and the third movie connect. The second movie doesn't fit what they want. They don't. It wasn't a cohesive idea.
Right.
They screwed it up.
But my issue with Rise though is that they're backpedaling.
Oh God, yes.
Like,
they did, fully, yeah.
Hell yeah. And like it's fine if you didn't like necessarily The Last Jedi, but at least that movie tried something. And then the next one is just like, no. Okay, wait, we sorry, we messed up. Let's take it back. And it's like, eh. But anyways, that's the whole.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
As far as I'm concerned, there were two movies. The Last Jedi, The Last Jedi ends after that fight with Palpatine. Not Palpatine, Snoke. That's where the movie ends, and nothing else happens after that.
Exactly.
It was a great dual movie series.
The film canisters got burned up on the way to the theater.
I don't remember. I haven't seen Last Jedi in a while either. But the few more things I want to mention about this movie is like I feel like it does a good job of putting a bow on things. You get that one Hutt that gets arrested by the Republic, which kind of helps turn more because he comes back in a later episode of the Clone Wars too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Cad Bane and stuff.
He comes back with the singer that Jabba's in love with.
Oh
yes, he is Cy Snoodle's boyfriend.
Yes, that's right.
And like the stuff with like
Star Wars names,
where after you have Ahsoka beats those droids, you have when Anakin does show up at Jabba's palace and pretty much kind of threatens him, and it like they failed at the whole like negotiating because Anakin can't negotiate.
Yeah, he's like he is not spec'd for this mission.
No, like that's why like he's ready to kill Jabba and kill everybody.
He'll pull a lightsaber on a Hutt. Like, there's no way anything's going to happen after that.
Anakin is pure DPS. He is not spec for charisma.
Yeah.
But no, I don't know. I think those droids that Ahsoka takes out are in some game that I played, and they were a bitch to beat, and that's why I kind of judged. Like, that's how I judge certain things in Star Wars now, is based on how hard it was in a game.
They were in the
Revenge of the Sith game.
Revenge of the Sith game, and they were horrible in that.
I've never played those.
Okay, so have you played like the Lord of the Rings games?
I played Two Towers. Yes.
Okay, it's basically that, but Star Wars.
Okay.
So yeah, it's good. It's a good time, and there is a fighting game mode in that game that has no right being as good as it is.
I remember when it came out, and I thought it was a fighting game, so I paid no interest to it.
I played it on a handheld, that version. I don't remember if it was a Game Boy or if it was DS. It might have been DS.
There's a Game Boy Advance for one.
Oh, it might have been Game Boy Advance then. That's the one I played.
That's like a beat 'em up.
Yeah, that one.
Yeah, that's the one I played.
Okay,
and
that's a good game.
Those guys were hard in that. I remember that.
Kind of like
Are you the one that
style?
in Overblood that talks about that game, Will?
Which one?
Attack of the Star Wars game for Game Boy Advance, Revenge of the Sith.
No, I never had it on handheld.
Okay,
I've seen like videos of it though, and it looked. If I'm not mistaken, it's way forward.
There's someone I've met, and there's someone in Overblood that really likes that game that talks about it every so often.
I really enjoyed it, but I haven't played it in years. But it was really good at the time.
Way forward only drops bangers.
I know that the things, the robots you guys keep talking about, I think that's whenever you get your first real challenge in Fallen Order.
I gotta play that. I have that up
Yeah,
there.
there are enemies that have like the similar weapon, like the electro staff.
Yeah, you fight a bunch of clone troopers, and they're surprisingly easy, and then you get to the end of like that first part, and there's one enemy with that, and it actually kind of gives you kind of a challenge.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, and the game that I was talking about is Star Wars: The Clone Wars Republic Heroes. Came out in 2009, so it would have been based on the first season, which I never played, but I want to one day.
Oh, to go way back to the beginning, sorry, I did look up the opening crawl. Rogue One had one, but you're right, Solo didn't have one.
Rogue One had one?
That's
yeah.
cool.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
I need to go back and watch Rogue One.
It's a short little one, but it's there.
I flip-flop on that movie a lot. I liked it at first, and then I didn't like it, and now I like it again.
I hated it at first, but now I like it.
It just depends. I mean, for me, I haven't seen it in a while, but I have a hard time with depressing movies.
Yeah. It is a downer.
That. That's why I haven't watched Andor yet.
Andor's good.
So good.
I gotta watch it.
It's not. It's good. It's not depressing, actually, for the most part.
Okay.
But don't watch it all in one day like I did.
It starts slow, but the payoff is worth it. And there are like 3 monologues in the last couple of episodes, like back to back to back, all bangers. Like Stellan Skarsgård needs an Emmy for this show.
I doubt that's going to happen, unfortunately, because it's science fiction.
Exactly. But
and Star Wars and those type of award shows don't like Star Wars or Marvel stuff. So
yeah.
Any last things you want to say about the movie before we go on to our ranking system, shelf, stack, or box?
Nothing really I had in my notes. Pretty much covered everything I went over, or I took note of. I did find it funny at the end that like Anakin and Padme are totally giving each other like the goo eyes when they're they're on the call.
Yeah.
It like ends on them. It's like, oh, okay, they're gonna bone later. Hell yeah.
And I forgot to mention that I need to mention this. The end of this movie when they succeed, they bring they make their peace with Jabba. It plays a throne room song from the end of New Hope, and I really like that song because it was at my wedding.
Oh, that sounded familiar.
And that song is only in A New Hope, and then they bring it here too. It's when they get the medals, and I was like, that is really cool. They brought that back.
Cool.
That song just means a lot. I just really like that song too. And
I'll
that
say
scene,
my favorite line.
Even though that scene is a shot for shot from a Nazi propaganda film.
Yeah.
Christ.
New Hope, but still, it's great.
Well, no, yeah, pretty much any old cinema is all Triumph of the Will, because like Hollywood in general. No, Hollywood in general, like historically speaking, they took a lot of camera shots and stuff like that from like old Nazi propaganda stuff. Just anything old Hollywood is pretty much that.
I'll say my favorite line in there was "Jedi don't run."
That one was good.
No, they just stand and die apparently when Order 66 happens. So
Pretty much.
I'll get murked.
All right, let's go on to Shelf Stacker Box. And Joe, what about you?
That's a hard one, honestly. I think I'd probably end up putting this on the shelf in a way of like, oh yeah, you're going to go through the entire Star Wars series, which I don't plan on doing, but I do need to go through the entire catalog at some point because I missed Rebels and the Clone Wars final season. And in fact, pretty much like 3/4 of the Clone Wars TV series. So
you can miss majority of it. So I think,
I'll probably end up putting this on the shelf just as a kind of like, it was pretty good. And I could probably use to watch the entire series.
Okay. And I'll go next. I'm also going to put this on the shelf. I really enjoyed this movie. I actually was trying to watch it a second time, and I watched it while we're recording. I just really like this film. I came into it with low expectations, but it's fun. It feels good. It's entertaining. It's just a good movie, and it's a feel-good movie. You don't walk away from this movie being sad. And the dialogue, the dialogue's better in this film than it is in Attack of the Clones and Twilight, which I just watched yesterday. So, hey, that's impressive right there.
It's so coarse and rough.
Oh God! When I was rewatching Twilight. I was watching Twilight. Oh my God! I forgot how bad that dialogue is. So yeah, this movie, the dialogue was great compared to those movies. So it's going on the shelf. What about you, Jody?
Yeah, definitely shelf. Just as part of the whole Clone Wars series, to build out those movies. It's why I enjoy the prequels so much. Is just how much lore is there, but it needed this to fill it out, and that's why I just love this movie as a start to that series.
Okay. And Will, since you're new, it's shelf being something you really like, stack being something you like, but not as much, and box being something you dislike.
Okay. So, in my lizard brain Star Wars fan sense, this is fun. But like as an actual movie, there are problems. I wouldn't say I hated it, so I don't want to say box it, or what was it? Shelf?
Is the lowest.
Yeah, box is like lowest. Okay. I would say like low stack, I would say. There's fun to be had because if you're just looking for cool action and stuff like that, that's there. But like structurally as a movie, I can't give it the full on endorsement.
I get that. Okay.
All right.
That's not what I expected, but I'm glad we almost 3 out of 4 walked away really liking this movie. So hey, that works. I wasn't sure because some people do not like this movie.
That's the thing. I can definitely see how some people would like hate this movie. I wouldn't say I hate it, but there are definitely problems. Like I don't know how much stock y'all put into scores and stuff, like Metacritic or whatever.
None.
None. Right. But on average, this is like the lowest.
Shouldn't
rating. Yeah.
I liked it better than Attack of the Clones. I'll say that.
I mean, that's not a high bar. So I enjoyed it more than I thought I would when I covered it for the show, but that is not a high bar.
No, it's not.
I would probably put it above Attack of the Clones because Attack of the Clones is a bad movie. I enjoy it, but it's a bad movie.
Okay, and and Jody, where can people find you at?
So I'm Bakuiel on Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. That's Bakuiel.
All right, and Will, where can people find you at?
Yeah, so I'm on Instagram and Twitter as _VILLAIN villain. So I'm on there. If you want to check out my Instagram, I do like action figure photography. So that's pretty fun. Also on Facebook, feel free to join up on the I watched the entire Overblood Super Replay group, pretty good game group. Mike also is in there, good community, talking video games, talking nerd stuff. There for a good time. Hell yeah.
Show every week. All right. And if you want to hear all their other Star Wars content, you will see a link in the show notes to all the Star Wars stuff we produce, which is over 20-some episodes at this point. So definitely go check that out. And if you enjoyed this episode, you can find over 450 other episodes of this podcast, all on Podbean. Or that's where it has everything. And you can also find us on YouTube. We do video games, movies, comics, all sorts of stuff. So you can find tons of content there. And want to give a shout out to my awesome intro and outro, courtesy of Helena at Hell Hasphere. You can follow her on TikTok. And want to get a shout out to my buddy Bill Tucker, who started his own podcast, A Gamer Looks at 40. So definitely go check him out. And if you want to support the show, we do have a Patreon. For a little dollar, you can vote in our Patreon polls. You'll see a link in the show notes. Definitely check that out. And we do have a Discord where you can chat with us. You also see a link in the show notes for that too. Please join our Discord. And please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And I think that's everything I need to say. So we will see you guys all next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.